Hey everyone. As some of you may know, the Bristol Jazz and Blues Festival has had to cancel, unfortunately, for its second year now, due to the pandemic. The folks that run it are working very hard, though, to bring you live streamed music as soon as it's safe to do so. And they're also presenting a video podcast series, like the one that you're about to watch, hopefully, with myself. And this is to try and reach new supporters and highlight their new membership scheme, which will all help keep the festival going. Some of you might also know that a couple of years ago, I had a bit of a tough time mentally, and I took some time out to recover. I speak quite candidly and in more detail about that in my podcast, in order to send a message really to anyone in the music world or otherwise that might be experiencing challenges in a similar way. And that message is that it's okay to feel like that and that you're not alone. I think it's important for all of us at the moment to be aware of the trials that we're facing as struggling artists particularly, and that it's okay if you drop the ball now and then. And if that does happen, there are some amazing organisations that can help you. Help Musicians UK is one organisation that helped me very much, and they were incredible. They helped me get back on my feet. They also have a charity that's linked to them called Music Minds Matter, which is like a helpline that's open 24/7 that you can call anytime if you're feeling low or high or whatever. So make sure you check out their page, and also make sure you check out the donation page for the Bristol Jazz and Blues Festival and become a member today, because it will help support their great cause. Anyway, make yourself a cup of tea, get the kettle on, get a biscuit, and hope you enjoy my podcast. Thanks.
So, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Bristol Jazz and Blues Festival podcast. Today we're with the marvelous Mr. George Cooper, who is a musician, pianist, and composer from all over the place, but currently in Bristol. Hi, George Cooper.
Hi, how you doing, Katya?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks.
Good.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot in your 32 years. You've composed for film and television, you've orchestrated and arranged for like lots of famous people, and you've got your own bands that you perform in and write for, and holy.
You've done your research.
Just a little bit, might as well, so we've got something to talk about.
Yeah, that's wicked.
Yeah. Where did things start for you?
I guess, I think like, when I think about what I've done, you never really, as a musician, I think we're always like so on the front foot of what's next. And I rarely stop and think what I've done really, unless I give myself a pat on the back here and there. But I guess it has all been quite diverse. I've done lots of different things, rather than just sort of like
start?
Focus. So when I was 4, I think 4 or 5, I started having drum lessons. So I started on drums, which is my first instrument. And my gran, who's an incredible jazz audient, who was married to a jazz drummer in the 60s for many years, used to take me along to Bude Jazz Festival in Cornwall, which at the time I think was one of the biggest in Europe. It was like a week long. And from the age of 4 or 5, I was in the program, for a number of years on the front cover, playing my little marching drum in the parades and stuff. I used to do like New Orleans parades through the town. So that was my first taste of like
when you were
music.
5.
4 or 5, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like a little toddler with a little plastic marching drum. That was my first taste of music, was jazz. So I was like straight away into, witnessing that kind of culture of drinking real ale outside the pubs with all these old guys and all that kind of thing. And my gran used to ask, for me to sit in over the years that followed. And yeah, all through school, I was in the orchestras and was part of the productions, and I used to sort of sing and act and stuff like that, and all of that. I was really, really lucky in school. In middle school, John Stocker Middle School had an amazing woman there called Mrs. Mackey, Kathy Mackey, who was instrumental in inspiring young musicians. She ran a really, really great. The quality of the orchestra in middle school was fantastic, and the productions that used to get put on. There was a really good generation of musicians in Exeter and Devon, where I'm from, that kind of came through Mrs. Mackey, and also and then at secondary level, Chris Carter and Dave Parsons at West Eps, and then to Exeter College as well. With Yo Pugh, there was this really nice steady stream of really talented musicians. So I was really fortunate to be kind of wrapped up in all of that. And also in Dijo as well, Devon Youth Jazz Orchestra.
Right.
I joined that when I was about 11, I think. So yeah, by the time I was sort of 11, 12, I started playing piano when I was about 8 or 9. And then I started having jazz lessons when I was about 11 or 12 with Craig Milverton.
Fantastic musician.
Who's incredible, yeah. Hailed very often as Britain's Oscar Peterson. He's he was also incredibly instrumental in imparting some really great. I kind of by that point maybe moved my taste in jazz had moved from sort of traditional Louis Armstrong, New Orleans sort of stuff, and even old like King Oliver and that kind of style of traditional jazz. And I was starting to get a little bit more into bebop, a bit more into mainstream, Oscar Peterson and Bill Evans a little bit, and a bit more Blue Note, Horace Silver, and those kind of guys.
How marvelous to have that beginning, that it did start at the beginning of jazz and the jazz era, and that you didn't just dive in at sort of Miles Davis time or whatever.
Right, because I think if you do that sometimes, it's easy to swallow that sort of generation of jazz, but you forget where that's come from. It's really important to to see the flow of where this has started, where this kind of this style of music of improvising and playing melodies as they come to you, and listening to the people that first did that, and then being able to see
it
how
gives
that
the
was
whole
later
picture,
developed.
doesn't it? Really,
puts everything in context. Yeah. So I was really, really lucky to have my gran. My mum is an amazing musician who, once I'd been playing drums for 2 or 3 years, she's a pianist, sax player. She was head of music at college for a long time. She's still in education. She's a great music educator. So I was really happy to have that growing up as well. She used to teach me film themes on the piano, and I was so eager to learn them. She really wanted me to learn them from the music, and I was too eager to learn them. So I used to bat her hand out the way as soon as she played something and sort of try and absorb it by ear, and then with Craig started playing more jazz, and also I had a fantastic drum teacher when I was young called Chris Pope, who taught me loads of sort of Latin stuff when I was 4 or 5, and I was playing sort of these African rhythms and Latin rhythms, and then and a little bit later on into my teens, I had a guy called Steve Cross in Exeter as well, who was actually Chris's teacher, and he was just a walking encyclopedia full of Latin music. He had everything transcribed that you'd ever want to listen to, and he was a massive fan of Led Zeppelin. He got me into Led Zeppelin. So every week I'd go along and learn a new Led Zeppelin song and take the music home with me and have the transcription. And he used to sit there and count me in.
How marvelous to have all that talent around you to be taught by that and absorb that. And how
so
great.
lucky.
diverse as well, which obviously shows in your playing and your talent.
I think that was what was going to bring me around to the first point was the things that I've done since then and since sort of becoming professional and being a musician. I think the things that I've done have never just been one. They've never just been one kind of thing that I've focused on. Maybe if I had have done that, I might be a lot more successful than I am. But I think just doing lots of different things, I think is definitely a product of having lots of different inspirations and different instruments and different styles of music and stuff growing up. But yeah, jazz has always been very much at the front of it. It's the key to everything, I would say.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, Baby George, where did you get that nickname?
Baby George was from when my gran used to go up to these trad jazz bands in Blue Jazz Festival when I was sort of 6-7 years old, and I used to go for the whole week and stay in a B&B with my gran for years on end, until I started playing there, with my own trio and stuff. But all through those years, they used to be a guest session run by a guy called Gordon Hunt at Blue Jazz Festival, which people could get up and kind of play. So I did that a couple of times, but then as I got a bit older, through 6, 7, 8 years old, my gran used to go up to all the other bands and say, she used to go up, it was so embarrassing actually, she used to go up to them all and say, "Can my grandson have a knock?" That was what she used to say. And all these old guys were like, who's your grandson? Yeah. And so I always used to get up and the band were always a bit like, who's this guy? And everyone was like, oh, this is going to be really embarrassing. Luckily, because I'd had Chris teaching me drums already and was already surrounded by music with my mum and stuff. Like, I played from the heart, and I was just really enjoyed it. I was really enthusiastic about it, and I was a little bit of a novelty wow factor, I suppose, at the jazz festivals. Everyone used to call me Baby George from then on, right up until in my teens when I started. I started getting booked by the festival to put my own trio together to back Alan Barnes and
as a teenager,
Nightingale. As a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, which was quite, because people still used to call me Baby George because they'd sort of, they'd met me 10 years ago, I suppose. And I was just a bae, like playing drums, and then I was sort of playing piano on the bill and in the program and stuff. So it was quite a nice sort of journey, I guess. At that festival. It's an amazing festival.
It is. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of playing. So, all right. So we shoot up a little bit further into your career, and you've played with people like Hans Zimmer and Nigel Kennedy and stuff like that. So bring us up to speed, sort of, as far as that goes.
Yeah. So I never, I wish I had played with Hans Zimmer. And I've jammed with Nigel a lot, but I was more with Nigel Kennedy, more on the orchestration side of things, and arranging stuff for him. And with Hans, in the beginning, I was programming for him, programming strings, programming different projects.
How did Hans or Nigel, for that matter, how did they get to know about who you were? Like, were you putting it out there? Like, what happened? How did those connections happen?
I was lucky again. So before that happened, when I left college, I joined a Dixieland sort of jazz band, mainstream Dixieland jazz band called the Pete Allen Jazz Band. And instead of going to university and doing all that, which is what was on the horizon, I was looking at Guildhall and Trinity and those places, the Academy. And then I randomly got a phone call from this clarinet player, this guy Pete Allen, who said he was looking for a piano player. And I sort of went along and met him, met the band, and ended up going on tour pretty much, 1 month on, 1 month off sort of thing for a couple of years all around Europe, loads of jazz festivals around Europe, loads of gigs around the UK. That was my first proper, kind of national / international kind of touring band. And that really solidified all my jazz as well. And like with anything, I suppose, after a while of doing that, I was sort of looking at what was next. And a guy called Mark Werry, who used to go to Exeter College, who works for Hans now, he Hans Zimmer. My mum used to teach him clarinet at the college, and was, like my mum is to a lot of people, quite motherly and, very like inspirational stuff, and managed to get Mark back many years later to do a talk at the college, and me and him had a drink, and I had his card in my wallet anyway. I was in the back of the van one night in Germany, I think, when I was about 18, 19. Oh no, a bit later, when I was 19, 20. And I thought, I'll just give him a call, like out of the blue. It was about 2 a.m. or something. I thought, I didn't know what the time difference was. I was like, he's never going to answer. But I just thought, I just thought, I'm just going to give this guy a call and say, like, can I come out and make tea, or make tea for the guy that's making tea, and just come and hang out. And amazingly, he picked up and, amazingly said, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And he was so generous in kind of securing what was supposed to be like a kind of an internship, really, out there. And he let me stay with him at his place in Santa Monica as well. And he was really, really good to me. So that was my in. And I didn't really know, I booked the flight and everything. I didn't even really know if it was definitely happening until sort of like a week or so before. And I got like the address of where I was going. And so it was all a bit risky and a bit like, I just have to go for this thing, I didn't know how long I was going to be there really, and all of that. Anyway, ended up, I thought I was going to be making tea for the guy that was making tea. And instead, Mark had kind of got me like a position in the sample department, which was where Hans is best known, I suppose, and also the kind of area that Mark is a genius in, and has really revolutionized the way that music for cinema is kind of made with these really hardcore samples, and the different kind of the computer science involved in kind of getting custom samples to work for you and all that kind of thing. So I was dropped into the sample department, basically chopping up audio from, I think, the London Symphony Choir or something, to build this enormous instrument for Ron Howard's Angels and Demons. So that was my first project I was lumped into. And I think, the studio was quite impressed with, the way that I kind of worked, and I've kind of moved up to programming more strings and programming big cues and stuff. And I was right in the thick of it in terms of, being in the room right next to Hans. And I learned a hell of a lot out there.
Incredible education.
Absolutely, so
and very
intense.
brave to do that at such a young age. Do you think you would do that now? Do you have that sort of that ambition?
Yeah, I think
still to phone people up.
Yeah,
say I'm George Cooper.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, literally just before I spoke to you, I'd done that same thing a couple of weeks ago, and got a call back just before I spoke to you from someone of the same ilk. I don't think that ever stops. When you're in this industry, I think you always have to have that degree of humility when it comes to, no matter what you've done and no matter what you're doing, and whatever ability you think you are, you still have to take the plunge, because there's people, there's people. Obviously, there's still going to be millions of people in this world, billions of people in this world who don't know who you are, what you do, and so you do have to sort of sell yourself on a pretty much a daily basis if you want to make connections with people and impress them. I think I still would put myself out there and do that. I might think about it. I was very wet behind the ears when I was 21 out there. And I think, I would maybe do a few things differently. I'd maybe take a few things more by the horns now. But life went the way it went. I met some great people out there, who I then continued to work for in the UK as well. So that's how I kind of got in with the Nigel Kennedy thing as well.
Right. Okay.
Which leads quite well to that. My first project for him actually was arranging and orchestrating like 12 Duke Ellington pieces for him and the Oxford Philharmonic, I think it was. And I'd gone from sort of being an assistant on the project to kind of getting a lot more involved with it, and I was brought on for transcription really because fantastic orchestrator that I met in LA called Julian Kershaw, who I sort of became his assistant when I got back to the UK, and we kind of met up, and he sort of said, yeah, I've got this enormous project on for Nigel, and it's all jazz stuff, and he knew I was like a good jazz pianist and had good ears and stuff, and he was like, can you come and help me like transcribe all of these like ancient Duke Ellington recordings that are almost on wax, they're really hard to hear, all the close harmony and that kind of thing. So it took weeks and weeks, and yeah, I got right stuck into that. And then after that project, I worked with Nigel directly on a few more projects. I did his famous like Vivaldi Four Seasons. I sort of was brought on board to orchestrate the messing up of that, I suppose, and like making it a lot more jazzy and adding some crazier sort of instruments and stuff in. And Nigel Kennedy's very eccentric, very quirky guy, and
he is indeed
so fun to work with him on stuff like that, and putting
I met him years ago in Canada.
Sections.
Funnily,
right.
I was doing a little jazz gig, and the guitarist I was playing with at the time, he and I had just finished a gig, and we're in this restaurant, and Nigel came in, and he started playing with the guitar player I was working with, and they were just jamming on Led Zeppelin tunes. Speaking of Led Zeppelin,
amazing.
So,
yeah.
And he was certainly a character, and
a
wonderful. Let's bring it into kind of contemporary sort of stuff that you're doing now. I had the pleasure of seeing you last Sunday with the Jazz Defenders, which is a fairly new project. You've recorded an album just last year, is that right? With Haggis Records?
It's actually a lot older project. It's actually going for more like 4 years.
Okay.
That band, and we did record. The album was recorded in 2017. Mm-hmm. Actually, and then there was just a few things, like it went on to a couple of different labels before finally everything fell into place with Haggis Records. It was one of those things that's kind of been sat on the hard drive for ages, and it was like, this has to come out. So it came out a long time after, but it was released December last year, and we had we did have some gigs in the book to promote it, but obviously with COVID and everything, that all went out the window. So it was really nice to play last weekend for the jazz festival, and actually be able to bask in a little bit of audience applause and stuff, rather than just see a bunch of clapping emojis come up on your iPhone or whatever if you're doing a live stream. So that was really, really nice.
And is that something that you will, once things settle and we can get back out and work again on a regular basis, are the Jazz Defenders on your list of projects that you want to take forward? It's an incredibly stellar lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the guys have been a little bit more re-enthused. I think since the album has come out, and I think we're basically going to we're going to get in the studio in the next 3 or 4 weeks and just record a 7-inch single to put out. If I can get it out in December, it'll be great, and then it'll be a year later, and then next year record another album and a second album and get that out probably in the summer. It's one of those projects that I think now that we have the album out, it can be something that hopefully we'll release an album every year, or certainly release something every year, and just keep something like that on the back burner and keep it going. Yeah.
Wonderful. Lucky us. So good. Absolutely brilliant. Now, can I ask you a really personal question? You had a bit of a mental dip a couple years back, and I'm sure that there are people that will be listening or watching that saw you go through that. Can you tell us? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I've been rambling already for a long time, but if we've got time, I think mainly I went through this like enormous transition in my life before that happened. I split up with my girlfriend at the time, and there were lots of projects that I was involved in. There was a hell of a lot of work that I was doing. I was darting up around the country constantly, and I'm not ashamed to say I was living the party lifestyle alongside that as well, and kind of getting involved in the party scene, shall we say, drinking a lot, and I guess also, that feeling that you get after a gig when you've done a real banger and you get, real rapport from an audience, and there's a real high and there's a real buzz. And I think I kind of kept that high going afterwards quite a lot, and stayed high and used things to get me high. And I think with that comes a low that never really came about. I never really sort of came down from nights ever, because I was always onto the next thing. I'd have to get in the car and like drive up to Manchester or get to London, or
keep it going.
Perpetual state of kind of partying and gigging and working. And I think my brain sort of snapped. There was a real scientific chemical thing that happened in as much as my dopamine levels in my brain were way too much. I'd kind of flooded my brain with dopamine, and so I was thinking, I'm quite a kind of outgoing guy anyway, and I've always got ideas, and I've always got things that I'm trying to put together. And I think this stuff that I had coming up the following year, and the stuff that was on the horizon was really filling my brain constantly, and I wasn't really getting a rest from it. And that all came into play. And I basically the line of reality of what is real and what is kind of fantasy almost, and what is things that are in the future that you want to happen, that kind of line of reality started becoming quite blurred. And I didn't know that was happening. Obviously my friends and family could see that was maybe what was going on. And then unfortunately, I think because there was quite an enormous degree of misunderstanding between my friends and family and myself, and what I was experiencing, what my reality was, there became a degree of frustration, and then ultimately sort of paranoia, because I was, what my reality was obviously different, and I couldn't bring people up to speed on that. And so it then became a very sort of paranoid delusion and sort of fantasy thing, which, I ended up getting sectioned basically in Exeter, and it was quite traumatic. There was a hell of a lot of trauma involved in that, which I would later have to work through. And then it happened again. I was maybe released a bit too early from that, and I went to stay with my mum, which is always a difficult thing if you're a grown man and you have to go and live with your folks again. It can be a bit tricky. Mum was incredible. My whole family were absolutely incredible at supporting me, but unfortunately, I sort of I didn't rest enough. I didn't recover enough. I was so eager. I'm so ambitious. I'm so driven. I always have been my whole life. I'm so desperate to get to the next place and to get the next gig and all of that, that I didn't give myself enough time to rest. And it sort of happened again in a slightly bigger way. And I was actually carted off to Essex, which was a long way from home, because that was the only place in the country that there was a space for me, because mental health services are on the knees. So that was a bit traumatic, being so far away from everybody. And that one lasted a bit longer. I was in hospital for about a month. And yeah, I kind of came down from this fantasy and stuff that what I kind of thought was happening, and this kind of company that this production company that I'd kind of, I had actually set up before I went into hospital the second time. And that was, potentially a great thing that could have happened. It was just the way that I wasn't quite well enough in the head to be able to tackle that properly, and be able to just sleep and not think about it. It was kind of consuming me day and day, which is why I became ill again. But yeah, after that second time, I came out and I came back to Bristol. I kind of thought it would be better to come home to Bristol and be independent and try and recover here, rather than kind of go back and be, with my parents and stuff, which was amazing that they could offer that sort of support to me. But also I needed to kind of be brave and do this thing on my own.
Yeah.
And that was the point really when I came back home. I went right downhill with my depression. I just, as you would, coming from a big high like that, and your brain just on overload really, and on going at like 1,000%. You're thinking of every possible idea and every possible thing that could happen, and it's all really exciting and you're really passionate about it. To go from that to absolutely nothing, and to try and understand what's just happened, to try and come to terms with it, was an incredibly difficult thing, which took, I thought it would, again, because I'm so desperate to like get onto the next thing, I had to really stop and accept that this was going to take a little while. And it took a few months of just watching TV and like just staying at home, not going out that much.
Shutting off and sort of
shutting off. And not working, saying no to, I really said no to much stuff around them, because obviously a lot of people knew what was happening. A lot of people did give me space. And then slowly I started to feel a little bit brighter here and there. A big thing for me, which I'm not condoning for everybody, but a big thing for me, which was essential, was coming off of the meds that had been so harshly drummed into me that, I needed to be on them for the rest of my life, because I had this disorder, and I was told I had this condition that I had to live with, and I needed medication for it. And unfortunately, that's the way that mental health is treated in the West. And I wholeheartedly disagree with the fact that there's nowhere near enough psychotherapy, rather than there's too much psychiatry involved in prescribing medication for things like that, rather than talking therapies and talking through what you've gone through. And I think in a lot of other countries, they've really got that together, and the results are a lot better. But I had to really insist and really fight to have that, and to have some therapy, and to have some psychotherapy. And it was essential that I had that to get better. And that when that eventually got into place, months and months and months after I came out of hospital, and I'd already stopped the meds and was really afraid to tell people about that. But I knew I was strong enough to get through it and come out of the other side of that. And I also knew that there was no way that I was going to be able to come out the other side of it unless I did that, and unless I could think for myself again and have my own thoughts back and be able to hear music again. That was the horrible thing, which is indescribable, which is not being able to hear music in your head. whether that's a good or bad thing, because we're all cursed by that sometimes. You've got a blues going around your head when you're trying to sleep, and you've got bebop lines going around. It's a nightmare. But I'd rather have that than have nothing and have this empty void.
Absolutely.
So I got that back with the help of my friends and family, but definitely there was a real personal thing that I had to stand up. Finally, I had to stand up for who I am, what I'd gone through, and just try and move on from it, and you know, come through the other side of it on my own, and being a stronger person, which I think I probably am. You know, I think that experience has definitely shaped me. Definitely, you know, made me a bit wiser about the world and everything. But yeah, I think the main thing that's come out of that for me is not to be too like crushed by your own ambition, which is a hard thing to do, because if you're driven like me, like, you know, like a lot of people are, if you're creative and you're hungry, and, you know, we live in such a disposable culture where things come and go all the time, and you really have to be on top of things. You really have to sell yourself. You know, you have to have an ego. You have to reinvent yourself all the time. You have to have this image and all of that kind of thing, you know. And I think that can get on top of you. And I think it's really important that you do those things and you do them well. But you also, I think for me, for years and years, music came before anything. Music was like, I would live and die by it, and it would consume me, and it would completely rule me, like everything that I did. And I remember people saying, you know, what's the most important thing in your life? And it would always be music, and then family, and then friends. And I'd ask other people that, and they would say, oh, well, family. Or they'd say friends first. And I'd be like, oh, you're never going to be successful. Yeah. You're never going to make it, are you? And like,
what do you think now? If somebody asked you that now?
So I understand that now. I've come through that thing. And although at times I might still say music, and I might still be, I think I am very, very dedicated, but also I understand, I think more so now, that most of the time I would say family now. I would say friends. I would say enjoying life, you know, like enjoying the ride before. It's not all about that destination, you know. You have to be able to absorb stuff that's going on around you in order to make the art that you're trying to make, or to have the expression. You have to have something to say, you know. And if you shut away in a room all the time, trying to get there and trying to get to that place, you're not going to have as much to say, because you've not loved and you've not lost, and, you know, all of that stuff is
shared, I suppose, which is
shared.
When you share your music, but you're also, there's a beauty that happens between people, isn't there? So it can inform your music, possibly. Right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's music is important, and it's who I am. It's in my bones. It's in my soul. Like, I can't, you know, there's no way I could ever not do it. But by the same token, you know, you can't let music like consume you and rule you. You can't let music dictate your life and who you are completely. Otherwise, you might lose yourself to it, like I did. You might lose yourself to ambition and fantasy, and your dreams, and all the things you want might creep into your reality. And, you know, maybe not. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I just want it too much.
Thank you for being so candid, because I think it's really important for people to know and understand, and just listen to somebody's experience when it's that traumatic. And especially in the world of creative people, as we both know, we're susceptible to all sorts of stuff. And so it might help somebody to hear, you know, your story. So
yeah, I hope so.
I have two more questions for you. One is, what now? What are you doing now, right now, that's got you fired up? Just to go back to music for a second.
I'm really into the PlayStation right now, if I'm honest. What else is there to do?
Yeah.
What else are we supposed to do? No, recently I've been playing a bit more. I've been writing a lot. I'm trying to get a solo album together, which I think Haggis Records are into getting out next year sometime. That's something I've always put to one side, and I've always done what's kind of on my plate and what's come in. And I think a lot of people are probably feeling the same thing. I think at the moment everyone's really focusing on what they really want to do, what they've always wanted to do.
Spending a lot of time with ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. So solo albums, perfect. And also I've kind of been writing tunes for years that I've not, over the last 10 years really. There's lots of tunes, lots of tracks, and some vocal things as well. I think half the album's gonna be kind of like vocal led.
Gorgeous.
And I'm kind of that's what I want to put a lot of energy into. I'm off out to the Alps again for a season with a wicked band called Block Off the Wall. It's my friend Adam Isaac, who's a wicked singer, and we play a lot of like 90s dance kind of stuff. So it's very different from the jazz and stuff that's like in my heart, but it's also proper good party music, and it's done really well. So there's a hell of a lot of pre-production involved in that this time around, because we've expanded our set a lot more and expanded the instrumentation, and we're going to be running stuff on like a kind of sequencer drum machine thing as well. My focus is in that kind of thing at the moment, and then writing my own stuff. And I'm also working on a pretty big project with Lack of Afro at the moment as well, which I'm not allowed to talk too much about, unfortunately, because it's still being put together. But that'll be
Watch
in the
this
spring,
space, as it were,
next year. Which is hugely exciting as well.
Okay.
So there's things on the horizon. I'm fortunate enough to be able to, hope to go out to the Alps and earn something.
Yeah.
Do you ski? Yeah. Do I ski? A little bit. The last couple of years. This will be my third time I've gone out. I do ski a little bit now.
Right.
I picked it up pretty quick, because I'm a bit fearless and I just fly down the mountain, winding the windows down.
And just on a last note, George, what sort of thoughts or advice or anecdotes do you have for maybe young musicians that are coming up and doing their thing? What advice would you have?
The first thing I always think when anyone ever asks me that is just do something else. Don't be a muso. What the hell are you thinking? Make some money in your life. But no, that's not the right thing to say. If you're passionate about it enough already, and you know that it's something that you want to do, and you're dedicated, and you can feel it in there, then my advice to you would be just go for it with everything that you have. With like, don't stop and try and, I guess, make sure that it's the right thing, and all that. If you want to do it and you know you want to do it, then I think put everything that you have into it. Don't hold back, but also don't go as far as I did. Maybe don't let it be absolutely everything. Make sure that you rest. Make sure you do a gig and have a couple of beers after. But maybe after every gig, if you have a good one, maybe go to sleep on that high. Don't stay. You don't have to stay up and keep that going. Make sure you kind of balance your life. Be well, be healthy. Learn some car mechanics. Yeah. Look after your friends and family. Learn some basic car mechanics so you can fix a flat tire on the side of the road.
Very good advice.
But yeah, put everything into it, I think, is what I would say.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
It's been gorgeous to listen to your stories and have you with us.
Excellent. I hope I haven't rabbited on for too long.
Oh,
It's been
no,
40
you haven't.
minutes down the line.
If you want to check out where George will be in future, any of his recordings and what he's up to, check out georgecooper.com.
.co.uk.
.co.uk. Thanks, George.
.com wasn't available. You're welcome.